Markle's publicity stunt trip to Chicago has just blown apart Prince Harry's UK security lies.
But apparently for me, that doesn't matter.
She's trying to do this to get some decent PR after the Australian disaster. But for me, actually, Brittany, what she doesn't realize is she's just literally thrown a grenade into Harry's claim about why he needs security.
Did you like it?
I'm almost speechless.
Like, I tried so hard.
Saturday morning, Chicago, Holy Name Cathedral. Quiet pews, families dressed for First Communion, children smiling, cameras flashing softly. And then suddenly, there she was. Meghan Markle sitting casually in a beige turtleneck like this was the most normal thing in the world. No royal convoy, no armored perimeter, no dramatic security lockdown. Just Meghan smiling for a photo beside a local TV reporter who casually uploaded the image to X before mysteriously deleting it hours later. And that deletion changed everything because the internet instantly started asking the one question nobody inside the Sussex camp wanted people asking. If the United Kingdom is supposedly too dangerous for Meghan to safely step foot in without taxpayer-funded elite police protection, then why is she casually sitting in a public cathedral in downtown Chicago with one bodyguard and zero visible security panic? That single image detonated like a bomb across royal commentary circles because exactly 1 year and 1 day earlier, Prince Harry had emotionally declared to the BBC that he could not imagine bringing his wife and children back to Britain because it was simply too unsafe. Unsafe. That was the word. Unsafe became the backbone of the entire 1.5 million security war Harry dragged through the British courts. Unsafe was the emotional weapon. Unsafe was the justification. Unsafe was the reason British taxpayers were expected to sympathize while Harry fought for state-funded armed protection. And now, Meghan Markle was photographed smiling peacefully inside one of America's most violent major cities. 1 year later, same date, same argument, completely different behavior.
This is a total disaster for Prince Harry and his ongoing claim against Ravik in the United Kingdom.
Roll this story backwards because the deeper you go, the stranger it becomes. February 2020, the Sussexes announced they are leaving royal duties. Almost immediately, Ravik, the committee responsible for deciding who receives state-funded security in Britain, removes automatic metropolitan police protection for Harry and Meghan after March 31st. Instead, future visits would be assessed case by case. Sounds reasonable, right? Not to Harry. He launched legal warfare almost instantly. Court filings, appeals, emotional interviews, public pressure campaigns, and always the same central message repeated again and again: my wife and children are in danger. That line hit emotionally at the time. But now, after Chicago, people are revisiting every sentence with completely different eyes. Because when Harry submitted his witness statement in 2023, he specifically argued Britain could never feel like home for his children unless they were properly protected on UK soil. His lawyers escalated things even further in court. They referenced threats from Al-Qaeda. They described risks to life itself. This was presented not as celebrity inconvenience, but as mortal danger.
But 2020, when that decision happened, I couldn't believe it. I actually couldn't believe it. I thought with all the disagreements and all of the chaos that's happening, the one thing that I could rely on is my family keeping me safe. And not only did they decide to remove my security in the UK, but they also signaled to every single government around the world not to protect it.
And yet somehow, Meghan Markle voluntarily traveled alone into central Chicago with less security than Britain would have provided her under Ravik's own bespoke arrangements. That is the contradiction swallowing this entire story alive. Because this was not a hidden private estate. This was not a billionaire compound in Montecito. This was a public cathedral with over 1,000 seats. Open access, random congregants, phones everywhere, a working journalist sitting beside her, one bodyguard. That's it. No visible panic, no emergency threat posture, no sign whatsoever of someone supposedly trapped inside an international security nightmare. And the timing? Almost too unbelievable to be accidental. Exactly 1 year after Harry lost his appeal.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are claiming that they need guaranteed constant security protection from the British taxpayer because they are so under threat in the United Kingdom. And it is just impossible, given how famous they are and given their royal role, for them to travel around just like Meghan did.
When Harry sat in front of BBC cameras in 2025 saying, "I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK," people were supposed to hear fear, real fear, desperation. But now critics are replaying that clip beside Meghan casually attending a communion Communion in Chicago and asking whether the danger narrative was ever fully genuine at all. Because Chicago changes everything, not emotionally, statistically. Chicago's homicide rate massively exceeds London's. That's not opinion, that's math, which means Meghan voluntarily entered a city objectively more dangerous than the place Harry claimed was too unsafe for her existence without elite state protection. And once people noticed that contradiction, the internet exploded. Then things became even weirder. Because according to friendly coverage pushed through People magazine, Meghan was attending her godson's first communion. Harmless enough on the surface, sweet even. But then online commentators started digging into Catholic canon law, and suddenly another uncomfortable question appeared. Wait, Meghan isn't Roman Catholic. That's where the story took a bizarre turn nobody expected. Because technically, according to church rules, a godparent must be a confirmed Catholic who has received the Eucharist and formally lives within the Catholic faith. Meghan Markle was famously baptized into the Church of England before marrying Harry. Anglican, not Roman Catholic. Different church, different rules, which means either the media casually used godmother inaccurately for emotional branding, or someone hoped nobody would bother checking. But people checked, and once again, critics started seeing the same pattern they've accused the Sussex machine of using for years. Emotional language first, technical accuracy later, victim narrative first, questions afterward. That's what made the Chicago weekend spiral completely out of control online. It wasn't just the security contradiction anymore. It became something larger, a pattern, a collision between public claims and public behavior. And every detail kept making the optics worse. A local reporter uploads the photo, then deletes it. Why delete it? That instantly triggered suspicion. Was the image supposed to circulate organically before being amplified by celebrity outlets? Was this carefully staged visibility disguised as accidental exposure? Nobody can prove that. But people started connecting dots anyway, because with Meghan and Harry, the public now treats every tiny detail like forensic evidence. And honestly, the image itself became the strongest evidence of all. One photo, one beige sweater, one public appearance, one bodyguard, against years of dramatic legal arguments about existential danger. That is why royal commentators are calling this a disaster for Harry, because future legal opponents don't even need complicated arguments anymore. They just need two clips played back to back. Harry emotionally insisting Britain is too dangerous for his wife, followed immediately by Meghan voluntarily walking through Chicago with lighter security than Britain ever offered. That visual comparison is devastating. And somewhere inside Montecito, people are probably realizing the damage cannot be undone, because behavior always speaks louder than legal filings. Always. The terrifying part for the Sussex brand is this: once public trust cracks, every future claim gets re-examined through suspicion. Every statement, every interview, every emotional appeal. Suddenly, people start asking whether fear was genuine or strategically amplified. And now even longtime observers are saying the same thing. The Chicago trip may have accidentally exposed the contradiction critics have been screaming about for years. One side of this story cannot survive the other. Either Meghan Markle truly lives under such extreme danger that Britain requires extraordinary taxpayer-funded police protection, or she knowingly behaved in Chicago in a way no genuinely terrified person ever would. Both realities cannot exist together. And that is why one smiling photo inside a cathedral may have just destroyed the most expensive royal security case of the modern era. Then came another layer of embarrassment nobody inside the Sussex camp probably anticipated. People began comparing Chicago not just to London, but to Harry's own claims about private security being insufficient. Remember, Harry's case relied heavily on the argument that private security teams cannot properly replace state-funded police protection. That was one of the pillars of the lawsuit. His lawyers argued private teams lacked access to intelligence, coordination, and state-level authority. But Meghan's Chicago trip exposed her relying on exactly that supposedly inadequate model. One private guard, no state protection, no emergency tactical bubble. Exactly the setup Harry's own legal filings described as dangerously insufficient. So now critics are asking the obvious question: if private security is acceptable for Chicago, why is it unacceptable for London? And nobody has produced a convincing answer. That silence is becoming the loudest part of the story. Then came the emotional angle involving King Charles and the royal family, and this is where things started getting even darker, because commentators began revisiting accusations that Harry had effectively used his children as emotional leverage against the monarchy. The implication hanging over everything now is brutal. Critics believe the unsafe Britain narrative became a pressure tactic, a way to maintain maintain status, force concessions, and emotionally corner the palace into restoring privileges. Because think about the timeline carefully. Archie and Lilibet reportedly have not visited Britain in years due to security concerns. Harry publicly framed that absence as heartbreaking necessity. But meanwhile, Meghan willingly traveled solo through America into a city statistically more violent than London. Once people connect those dots, the sympathy equation changes instantly. And perhaps that is what made this moment feel so explosive online. It wasn't just another celebrity contradiction. It touched something bigger. Trust, authenticity, credibility. The public can forgive many things, but they react violently when they feel emotionally manipulated. That is exactly why the commentary became so savage after the Chicago appearance. Suddenly, people weren't asking whether Harry and Meghan were victims anymore. They were asking whether victimhood itself had become part of the branding strategy. And honestly, the timing could not have been worse for them, because the Chicago story exploded during an already brutal royal news cycle. The Met Gala dominated headlines. Discussions around the royal family were everywhere. King Charles continued public duties despite health concerns. Princess Eugenie's pregnancy news circulated online. Archie's birthday discussions resurfaced. Thomas Markle quietly reappeared in America dealing with health struggles and prosthetic fittings. The Sussex brand already felt shaky. Then Chicago arrived like gasoline thrown onto fire. And the internet did what it always does. It turned the beige turtleneck into a symbol. People started mocking the idea that one sweater destroyed a 1.5 million legal war. Memes exploded. Side-by-side comparison videos spread everywhere. Harry's emotional BBC clip versus Meghan smiling in Chicago became the defining visual contrast. Critics called it the receipt. That word kept appearing over and over again. Receipt. Proof. Confirmation. Evidence. And maybe that is what makes this whole thing feel so dangerous for Harry long term. Because legal defeats can sometimes be spun. Public contradictions cannot. A failed lawsuit can be blamed on politics. A failed appeal can be blamed on institutions. But your own spouse casually behaving opposite to your entire argument, that is impossible to spin cleanly, especially when former insiders started piling on publicly. Tom Bower's previous warnings suddenly resurfaced everywhere online. Old interviews, old clips, old accusations about emotional blackmail and image management. People who once sounded overly harsh suddenly sounded strangely prophetic after Chicago, because the contradiction became visual, undeniable, almost cinematic in its symbolism. 1 year after Harry claimed his family could not safely exist in Britain, Meghan appeared relaxed inside a more dangerous American city with less protection than Britain would have provided. You cannot unsee that once you see it. And the palace? Noticed something eerie. Silence. No response, no outrage, no official comment, nothing. That silence itself felt suspiciously powerful because royal silence often means one thing. They believe time is exposing the contradiction more effectively than any statement ever could. Why interrupt when the public is already connecting the dots themselves? And maybe that is the most chilling part of this entire saga. Nobody really needed to attack Harry and Meghan this time. The contradiction attacked them on its own. One public appearance did the damage. One photograph. One cathedral, one deleted tweet, one bodyguard, one beige turtleneck. That is all it took to reopen 5 years of accusations and make millions of people question whether the fear narrative was ever fully authentic in the first place. And now the story refuses to die, because every time someone watches those clips side by side, the same uncomfortable question keeps returning. If Meghan Markle truly believed the level of danger described in Harry's court case, would she ever have behaved like this? Most people already seem to have their answer. And that is why this Chicago trip may haunt the Sussex brand for years, because it transformed abstract criticism into visible contradiction. Not rumors, not anonymous palace gossip. Visible contradiction. The kind audiences understand instantly without needing legal analysis. The woman supposedly too endangered for Britain just chose somewhere statistically worse, voluntarily, comfortably, publicly. And somewhere inside all of this sits the devastating possibility that the royal family knew eventually the truth would expose itself naturally. No press war needed, no retaliation needed, just patience. Because eventually behavior always tells the truth louder than interviews ever can. And now the internet believes Meghan Markle accidentally told the truth in Chicago.